I'd like to call to order the Board of Education meeting from Monday, March 25th. If everyone would stand to recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let the record show that we have all board members present, except for Ryan. But we've got two empty seats. Tracy's on the phone. I'll be all right. Everybody's here but Ryan. Tracy's on the phone. Okay, we need an adoption of the agenda, including the supplemental personnel report.
Could I point out the changes that we have
Yes,
made
sir,
to the
please.
agenda? We do have an addition in the consent portion, KSDE grant, migrant grant approval. And then we have two additions in the business section. One is a procurement for a train at Comanche Middle School, I believe.
Comanche Middle School and Dodge City High School.
And Dodge City High School. And the 12th item in that section will be the first one we cover, and it has to do with our insurance
Bid for
bid.
benefits, yes.
So the insurance bid will be the first item we cover to allow the presenter time to hit the road. So we've added that to it as well.
Then number 12 will be number 1.
Number 12 will be the first one that we do cover. And I'd just like to take this time as we begin the board meeting tonight to share our condolences with Pamela. Appreciate her attendance, but know that the extended family is going through a very difficult time right now. And when you know, we're thinking of you and appreciate your presence here. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
absolutely.
Okay, I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay. We have a motion by Tammy and a second by Jamie. All in favor? All right, 6-0. And approval of bills, it was Ryan's turn to review the bills this month, and he's not able to be here tonight, but he did let me know that he did review the bills and that everything looked to be in order to him. So I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the bills for this month.
My second.
Okay. Motion by Lisa and a second by Tammy. All in favor? 6-0.
Good work.
Okay, we have a couple special presentations. First off, we have Mr. Jay Gifford, and I think he was under direct orders to be here tonight. So, and I'm not very good at waxing eloquent on this, but he has been selected as the 2019 National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association State Award of Merit winner. So we're very proud of him for that. And then we also have Mr. Sean Steiner, who was selected as the 2019 Art Newcomer Promising Athletic Director Award winner. So we are representing the high school very well.
Sean, I've never put you together with art. I mean, what is it?
Saturday's recognition include both of you, or is that just, yes, that would be nice. Open.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
I really tried to read all those student
handbooks.
No. I never had. 8 years, I've never.
No way.
If these smart people get it figured out, I'm happy.
I know, right? Because I'm like, they can handle a handbook.
Right.
Don't need to stick it out of our arm or something.
Gotta wear khaki pants to be an AD.
I know, right?
I should have you talk
I
about
guess you can leave, Sean.
Oh, yeah. Very good.
Picture and gone.
got proof he was here.
Okay, and before we go on, I just would like to mention our high school drill team performed at the Hutchinson JUCO tournament and represented Dodge City and Dodge City High School very nicely, so that's
And if
That's
you
great.
allow me, I would add to it, but I actually took the day off on Wednesday because I've had season tickets for many years and intended to go anyway. When I found out they were performing Tuesday, I made a point to be there as well. Good excuse, right? And not only were they outstanding, but the next day I heard from multiple people when they saw my Dodge City shirt. They just kept talking about how wonderful that was. And the director of the tournament, who's been doing the organizing for halftime entertainment for 21 years, said we've never had a standing ovation before, and we got one tonight. So,
that's great.
so a lot of accolades for Dodge City High School and the drill team, and just the quality of the program. I mean, can't be overlooked. So,
They've already been offered an invitation to come back next year.
That's great.
Yay.
very
Very
nice.
good.
Very nice.
Okay, so we're ready now for Stuco reports. First up, we have Alejandra Rangel from DCHS Student Council.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Dirksen. We've had a very much needed and laid back month due to spring break.
Much needed.
Yeah. Earlier in March, our high school was gifted $1,000 from Gordman's during their grand opening. This money has been earmarked to buy furniture for some of the academic hallways. We hope that this will create more usable shared spaces around the school for students and teachers to utilize. Our juniors are busy getting everything set up for prom next month, with the theme being a night in Paris. From what I've seen, it's all looking very nice, and I think they're doing an amazing job. Student Council is in the process of organizing some fun end-of-the-year activities for the student body, as well as some projects that we've been in the process of finishing up. I don't want to get into more specifics on that since it's supposed to be a surprise for them. That's all I have for you today. Do you have any questions over anything I have mentioned?
It was a laid-back month.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, and for Comanche Middle School, Andrea is in line for high school cheerleader tryouts, so she didn't want to step out of line and miss her opportunity there. So Mr. Woofter was nice enough to forward me the report, so I will read that for Andrea. Auditions for the musical start tomorrow. The musical this year is Alice in Wonderland. It will be performed on May 2nd for the fifth graders and May 4th for the community. Video submissions for Comanche's Got Talent. This is the end of the year talent show. Comanche STEAM Night will take place on March 26th. Sixth grade will study robotics, seventh grade will study science and engineering, and eighth grade will study agriculture. The Red Cross, National Guard, and Dodge City Fire Department will all be present that evening to visit with the students. Mr. Acton came to CMS on February 27th to speak to us about bullying and carrying around baggage. March 1st, the CMS choir, bands, and orchestra all attended the music festival held at DCMS. All of our music departments performed well and made us proud. Then on March 5th, our band attended Bandorama. It was a great night full of music. We ended basketball season strong as our seventh grade boys took second place in the league tournament. And this week we will have a scrimmage during track for our first meet. Our first official track meet will be April 4th. Do you have any questions? I can't answer them, but. All right, thank you for that report. And next we have Grace Pelton from Dodge City Middle School.
Good evening. I'm excited to be here and inform you about all of the exciting things that have been happening since the last time I talked to you. The last time I talked to you, we were finishing our boys' basketball season. Everyone had a great season and learned a lot of new skills. Our 8th grade A team finished second place for WAC. Our 8th grade B team finished 4th. Our 7th and 8th grade A and B teams both finished in top 8. We started track and field season. We also started soccer. Boys boys and girls soccer will be playing against Liberal Eisenhower on Thursday. Track and field will have a mock meet on Thursday with Comanche as well as the high school. Drill team is preparing for their spring tour in May. In February, cheer traveled to Garden City for a cheer competition and received A1. A1 is the highest rating you can receive. We started state testing in our science, social studies, math, and ELA classes. We should have all state testing finished by the end of this month. Our student council has started a food drive. The food we collect will go to the Manna House. Stuco is also preparing for our third and final dance of the year, as well as Beautification Day. For Beautification Day, Stuco members will spend half the day picking up trash and planting flowers around the school. Beautification Day will be in April, and the last dance will be in May. On March 21st, DCMS hosted the Choir, Band, and Orchestra Music Festival for the area middle schools, 7th and 8th graders. We had many schools attend the music festival. Our choir, band, and orchestra all received 1 ratings, which is the highest rating that can be awarded. Thank you for the opportunity to present. Do you have any questions?
Very good.
Nice. Sounds
Thank
good.
Thank you, Grace.
That wasn't a laid-back month.
No, that's pretty full.
Busy.
All right, we have next up recognition of visitors. Persons may present ideas or concerns regarding USD 443 schools. No action will be taken by the board at this meeting. Personalities and behavior of employees are not to be presented during this period, but are to be reported to the employee's immediate supervisor. The president shall determine the amount of time to be spent for citizen participation. If you'd like to address the board, please approach the podium at this time. Seeing nobody jump up, we'll move right on. Next up, we have the consent agenda. That includes the approval of personnel, including the supplemental personnel report, approval of minutes for the February 25th Board of Education meeting, approval of Bright Beginnings Policy Council minutes for February 19th, approval of the 2019-2020 secondary handbook revisions. This is the second reading for Dodge City High School Student Handbook, Alternative Education Stride Student Handbook, the Choice Student Handbook, USD 443 Middle School's Common Student Handbook, and Comanche Middle School Addendum, as well as the Dodge City Middle School Addendum. The approval of disposal of older iPad devices, approval of Early Head Start grant application for Bright Beginnings, approval of social and emotional books, zones of regulation, and the approval of the KSDE Migrant Summer Services grant application.
I would make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as read.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Jeff and a second by Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. All right, new business. We have first up curriculum and instruction, Dr. Springston.
Good evening, Board of Education, Dr. Dirksen. I'm excited to be here tonight. I'm telling you, I was joking with Tammy and Matt that, things are so busy that you need to catch your breath sometimes. So what I want to do is just say that overall at this time of year, it's very exciting. There's a lot going on, but it's very purposeful work. And so I want to give you a couple updates that lead into the strategic action plan because it's all piece of it and it fits within the overall scope of our work. So today we had 2 meetings with our MTSS groups. We had our district leadership team meeting this morning that met, and we started working on our core beliefs. So our core beliefs are basically our essence of what is most important to USD 443. These core beliefs will transpose in the near future into the development of the district mission statement. So we'll review our current mission statement and make sure it aligns with what we believe is most fundamental to our students and our staff and our community here in Dodge City. This afternoon, we met with the assessment work group, and I'm proud to say that over several meetings, this group has narrowed down a universal screener. We still have some vetting that we need to do, and the universal screener will be important because it's our ability through that instrument to assess our students' reading levels, math levels, and social and emotional readiness across the district. So it'll give us that starting point then that we can tier or we can tailor our Tier 1, which is our core instruction, as well as our Tier 2 interventions and Tier 3 interventions.
Dr. Springsteen, when you say screener, what do you mean? Somebody, are we hiring someone or?
No, it will be a program that we purchase that will include both online as well as teacher-generated, like reading passages and those types of things, so that we can assess where our students are at all levels. And so it'll be something we'll manage in-house.
Okay.
Obviously, we'll work with Ray in that data management and what that looks like, and how, most importantly, how that data is getting in the hands of our teachers so that they'll have it to be able to do their planning in their PLC groups. So it'll be something that we will use internally.
Okay.
I talked about, English Language Arts Work Group. We're in the process now of reviewing materials. And as I mentioned before, this will be a process that will culminate next spring with a recommendation to the board as far as our primary source materials. What will be the materials that align with our curriculum standards by grade level. And that's fundamental as we go forward in our English language arts. And then these Tier 2 interventions that we're designing and developing, along with our support structures in the building with our professional learning teams, will help support that implementation. And the goal has been all along is that what we do is aligned systematically and systemically across our entire district, so that we're enabling our teachers to have a much clearer focus. We're providing them the support and then the time to make the adjustments at the building level using the data so that we can rapidly respond to our student needs. A couple other items that are coming up there in that same vein is this, on April 18th, we will be meeting K-12 music teachers. I have invited Dr. Payne from Kansas State University, he's the chair of the music department, to work with our K-12 music staff to start the discussion of aligning our K-12 music curriculum district-wide. And so we'll start that on the 18th. There'll be subsequent meetings as well, so that won't be the only meeting that we have. We're also in the very early stages of designing the same process for our K-12 counseling program review, and we'll align that with national standards. And so that we're just starting that. So you can see there's a lot happening, and so it's very exciting because it does dovetail exactly into the strategic plan. Now, the plan itself, as you can tell in your board packet, is quite lengthy, and what I really wanted to do tonight is just an opportunity to collect feedback that you guys have of the document thus far. It's still a working draft. I want you to know that Friday I met with staff, and we started importing the academic goal information and context. Within that, obviously, our first goal under academics is to align our literacy focus around the LINK grant. And so I've been working with Kelly Clark. We got quite a bit of that done. So there's been a lot more than what you have in your packet. Now, our focus area chairs are here, and if you remember, our chairs are being led by cabinet level administrators, and so they're here to answer any questions that you might have about the document. And what I'd like to do is collect any feedback you have so we as staff can go back and make any necessary adjustments or changes or additions to what you have. So I'm going to leave it at that and just see if you have any questions or feedback from what was provided.
Just one question, just from my definition of term. When you say primary source materials, what do you mean by primary source? You're talking about textbooks, iPads, the whole?
Yep, it could be any or all of those. So what is the one source of information that we'll use for all students at the same time? So that would be like our core curriculum, whether it be a printed material or it be online or blended with both of them. And so that's what we'll look at. Then the secondary sources will be any of those other items that we need to select as far as materials to help support that remediation or enrichment and what we call our Tier 2. So Tier 1 is what we're providing all of our students. Tier 2 will be then how do we customize to meet individual student needs. And again, I want to stress that it's not only remediation, it's also enrichment. We want to move kids where they are with this screener data and then be able to then customize the instruction that goes on in the classroom.
I'll be very interested to see the primary, where the committees and they come up, what is the primary source material? That will be very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, it is. And I will say, well, that's a very important decision. It is. I don't want to diminish it. The work that we're doing ahead of time is to make sure that we're aligned with our curriculum, not only what should be taught at each level and when, but then also what are we going to do and how do we set the structures up when students aren't getting it. Those materials are really the tools to help us to do that job. I mean, this foundational and district-wide approach to having things similar as far as the sources and the process is the most fundamental work that we're doing right now. Because then the materials will come in and help support our work.
And the key is it'll be consistent with all of our schools.
Right.
And we'll all be together. So.
Yeah, that's very important, obviously.
So do you plan to have, like, the meetings, I can't remember what you called them, but where you had teachers and community members and board members, are you going to continue to have those periodically to continue to grow this and as things change, or?
Yeah, so the community meetings that we held to look at the data, yes, and they'll be part of the KISA team work that melds into our district leadership team. And so one of the tasks, what we have going on right now is we have two district leadership teams. One is for KISA and one is the MTSS work. Tammy and I, obviously with Dr. Dirkson's direction, are working to meld that together next year so that functions. So it's an advise and consent body. And so we will look at, obviously, with our requirements for site council membership and those things. So we haven't determined what that committee makeup will look like, but it will involve getting information out. And then the keys that Mr. Hires has mentioned multiple times in our meeting is that these documents are really reflecting what we're doing and what we need to do, and they need to be living documents. So we have to communicate it with not only our staff, our students, most importantly, but our staff, as well as our community as a whole. And I'm working with Carrie Baker. She's doing tremendous work on that. So we're building that piece up in multiple platforms, whether it be our website or social media. And then obviously community engagement is a huge piece of that you, I'm sure, saw in the strategic plan, that how do we continue to increase opportunities to get our parents, our community to the table to be able to provide input and review in what we're doing. So the answer to your question is yes, and that's under design. Obviously, once we have more details, we'll bring that to the board.
I think the important thing is that we keep coming to you with the strategic action plan so that you see what is going on, because obviously there is a lot going on, but if we don't present it to you and we don't share it with others to get involved, then it's just sitting on the shelf, so to speak, which is what we said from the beginning we're not going to let happen. So we're trying to keep you informed along the way. And your point is well taken, and we talked about this today at the MTSS meeting, but stakeholders have to be involved, whether it's the teachers, whether it's parents or community members, and we're well aware of that, and we're keeping that central to our focus. So.
And you hope to have this complete by May 1st?
Yes.
Okay.
So the next steps is on October 17th, we will bring the draft to the district leadership team for MTSS to have them vetted as well. Our administrators will vet the process, and then we'll bring it to the board in its final version for you guys to approve. And then from there, we'll start the linkages to all activities that it relates to within the district so that it's embedded in everything that we do. April 24th also is our OVT visit for KISA. So it's part of our requirement, and we're very excited for the team to come because of a lot of this work in particular, the strategic plan was a key piece of what we're required to do. So I'm excited to be able to show them all the work that the district staff and the community through their input has provided guidance for. And so that will be April 24th. Sometime in end of May, early June, the date's not been determined yet. Once the board has approved the strategic plan, we will work with building administrators to look at their building school improvement plans and start to align their building plans with the district improvement plans, and then develop the platform by which they can monitor that and communicate it through their school communities.
Just a question, taking it down to the real low basic level. Getting everything the same means that no matter what third grade classroom you walk into in their language arts program, you're going to see the same language arts kinds of lessons going on, the same language arts materials, the same language arts goals and objectives.
Correct. And the same vocabulary that we're using with the students, the same processes by which we're looking at data.
Okay.
So that's that similarity district-wide. And as we've talked
think
about,
that's
and you
very
guys know,
important.
there's a lot going on in the district. The audit pointed it out, and countless conversations and additional, quantitative feedback since the audit has all said that we do so much. What we really need to do is do what has been research-based, employee vetted, but do it really well.
Really well. I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next up, Mrs. Nedler.
Good evening. We just wanted to take an opportunity to keep you up to date on some of the progress that Head Start is making. Last year, or 2 years ago, the Kansas Head Start grant was offered out to extend and add some more childcare slots and some more home visiting slots, with the intent that we could have a child be in both, so they could receive the daycare services but then also get home support. And so that's how the Kansas Early Head Start slots were rolled out. And after they got into it a little bit, Kansas learned that, oh, no, we can't really do that. They have to be in one program or the other. And so we went ahead and let our families choose which program they wanted to be in, but then that left, if they chose childcare, then open home visiting slots. So we had taken on more slots than our community needed, because you could not double enroll. And so we had some slots unfilled. Even though all of our early Head Start slots are funded by the state and not our federal slots, they give some money to support the early programming. So they give a little bit of money kind of as that umbrella over all of the Kansas slots, and therefore federal then claims those as fully enrolled or under-enrolled. And so the federal, even though the state said, it's okay, we're working with you, we'll figure it out, we'll reduce if we need to, federal said, you're under-enrolled. And so they put them on a plan to make sure their enrollment was full. So they've been working with the regional office through that, and they just received a letter last week that their full enrollment letter, that they have been full for 4 consecutive months. Now, they'll be monitored for a 12-month time period, but prior to that, they had not had a problem with enrollment, and we don't anticipate any issues with enrollment in the future. Just kind of cleared up what the state wants and what the federal wants. Sometimes is not exactly the same thing, but they have to play by both rules. And so this letter is just to inform you that they've met that, and they'll still be monitored for that for a total of 12 months, but at this point, they've been 4 months fully enrolled. So, any questions? Okay.
I think it just shows the exasperation that goes into this program and how complicated it is, because there are literally layers that you have to go through, and satisfying one doesn't necessarily satisfy the other, and so that compatibility becomes an issue too. So compliments to the entire staff for the efforts being made and the continuation of that, so.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Public Information Office.
Good evening, Board of Education and Dr. Dirksen. I have a fun item to present this evening. We're going to talk about drones, so that's kind of lighthearted and a good place to start. It's kind of interesting that I'm here making the request about the drone program, but I was actually visiting with Chris Spindler and Mr. Rankin, and I said, do we have drones? Because I'd really like to have some video, because that would be really what we need to have for our website. And that led to several different conversations. So I'm here on a more serious request to just get the drone program up and going for USD 443, and that is working with the Career Technical Education Program with the Dodge City High School. So before you, I have a bit of information. We do have a drone, I guess, and it was at one time the property of the soccer team. But we are wanting to get it repaired and get started so that we can get people certified in the district, so we can start having some training programs and then incorporate that with career technical education. You'll see before you that I have laid out the financial considerations, how many people want to be involved with the program. We have 2 more people to add to that list, and that would be Mr. Stoda, and that is because he's part of the energy pathway, and then Mr. Smith, who is part of law and public safety. So they feel like they can use the drones in those 2 programs as well. So the licensing fees, those type of things, it is about $600 per staff member to get certified. And we're hoping to have that happen before we start school next year. Certification can take place a couple of different times, and we'll have people sign up as soon as you approve that. I did work with Mary Trent, and I want to say thank you to her. She really has worked at trying to get the expense to me on what it would cost to insure the drone. We really won't know until after we purchase it and we have certification. So that's one of those pieces that's a bit unknown, but she did give me a quote on what she feels would be the high end. So you can see that information in front of you as well. The estimated cost for getting us up, getting certified, and repairing the current drone that we have is going to run at $5,350. Now, again, that's adding $1,200 for those 2 people that I suggested that was not on the original consent form. We're looking at including this program with the high school. For public relations, the use for that is that we will get to have video and have them shoot video for us. If I were to call somebody and say, could you shoot some video for us of buildings or kids playing on the playgrounds or different things like that, it would cost us somewhere between $1,500 and $3,500 to have somebody outside come in and shoot that video. So we feel like it's a good use to put the drones to work for us and have the video at our disposal when we have certified people to take that for us. Any questions?
So Carrie, once they're certified, are they certified for good, or?
There's part of that, they will have lifetime certification. Then there will be students underneath them. At this time, we don't know if there will be a lot of expense for that. We don't think so, but those instructors will be lifetime certified.
And then will the students be able to be certified?
They will be able to fly under the instruction of the certified staff. And one of the reasons we've expanded the number of people that would be certified is because they have to be present at all times. So if for some reason instructors would be unable to attend, then we would be limited on the use of the drones. Now, as we move forward with the budget process, I'm going to put in my budget to have a drone, and that will be used at the high school. And then also I'm working with Mr. Martinez, and he's looking at purchasing a drone too. So we're looking at maybe 3 drones within the program. But those requests will come later, and they are not that expensive, so.
I think that's an exciting program in an agricultural area where drones are becoming common use.
Absolutely, and other school districts are really getting active with that as well. And as you can see, we had different engineering, media, there's all types of uses for the drones, so.
That was very evident this weekend if you went to the 3i show and saw all the different displays and how involved the drones are in agriculture and industry today. And that really stuck with me. And I think there are a lot of areas that we haven't even yet considered, and maintenance might be another area where we save having to put people on ladders because we can use a drone to take a look and then see if we really need to go up there or not. And I think there's an unlimited possibilities.
Law enforcement, there's all types of different applications that we can start training our students. So our request, yes, go ahead.
I'm just curious, when we say we're insuring the drone, are we insuring the drone itself or the liability? Thank you.
Liability.
I would love to see the coverage form to insure the drone.
I mean, you could insure them, but they're not terribly expensive.
Yeah, well, we've lost 3 of them. They just flew away, never to be found again.
I knew that you would mention that this evening.
Yes.
Tell me about difficulties on the website. Where are we at on that process?
I need to know what the difficulties are.
Well, when they click on the link to go to the page, it says, it comes up with an error message. It doesn't go to where they're supposed to go to.
I'm not aware. I thought I fixed them all.
Okay.
It is a work in progress, I would say, and I know that Carrie and Ramona have had discussions with Ray, and Ray's working diligently, trying to keep it moving forward. So And there are many facets that we're dealing with on this, because as we're trying to improve our website, technology is moving websites to mobile phones. And so we're starting out and we're almost behind already. And there's a whole lot of talk about that becoming more the mechanism for the tool. But right now we're doing the best that we can, and we've made some great progress, and I think that will continue. So.
Yeah. If you all hear a link, just give me the specifics. They can be fixed like in 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah.
Not 30 minutes for sure, so.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's where we get.
Go ahead.
Okay. This evening, the first item we're going to do is somewhat out of order, and I do appreciate the board allowing this. And I'll just say that this was supposed to be on the board agenda that came to you, and it's basically the approval for request for proposal for the health insurance plan. We had the board consideration done, but we were still waiting for the draft proposal. And anyway, in the process, we got a little bit confused on that. But anyway, we do have Sarah Schaefer here tonight. And Sarah, I'm going to kind of turn this over to you to kind of go through this. This is the next stage. And this is kind of, we're looking for an approval of this before we send it out to potential vendors. So, Sarah?
Thank you very much. I am surprised to be talking. Mary Trent just assured me that I would not have to. So this, I'm talking about health insurance, which is fun and lighthearted too. So good that I'm following the drone conversation. No, in your packet is the draft of the RFP. It was given to Bill and his team. I know there will be some finishing touches to it, anything that needs to go on all bids that come out of your school board or things of those natures to finish it up. But the intent of the bid is listed in it, and it is to allow firms to give an opportunity to illustrate their employee benefits philosophy and the list of services, and we've tried to focus them into three main topics that have come out of the discovery process of what's going on with your group health plan. It is listed in there, but having had the experience in this industry, the questions are a little bit different to really drive the potential bidders out of their normal, which is if you have a wellness-based question, they grab their canned response to wellness. And so these are more of like, if you are familiar with the concept of motivational interviewing or emotional intelligence, it's making them tell a picture of what it's like to actually work with their firm. And we focused them into the three areas that have mattered most out of this discovery process, which is, are they knowledgeable of self-insurance? What are their methods to have employee education and advocacy so everyone understands the valuable benefit package that's offered to your teachers and staff? And any technology-based enrollment solutions, ones that they own themselves or that they have strategic partnerships with, because just like your phone comment, there are people enrolling from their phones right now for their employee benefits, and that's becoming more and more of what the younger millennial generation requires. They want to enroll for benefits that night, sitting on their couch while they're watching TV. So the enrollment technology part itself is twofold. Brokers often bring this service, but there are standalone entities that could connect directly with your organization. So when we get to that element of the bid, it is brokers and advisory firms and technology companies that tout that as their major service. They're listed in here. There's a timeline. The goal is to have all of the bids returned, recommendations from the board on who you would like to have with finalist interviews, have those done in May, and then by June bring this to a vote of who you would like to work with for the upcoming insurance cycle. Your plan does begin each October. But since I have the microphone, I would like to say it's interesting when you think about health insurance, because one thing I really like to hear Dr. Dirksen say is that USD 443 stands for the students. So I was really challenging myself on how do you connect a health insurance conversation back to helping the students, because really it's the teachers and it's the staff that purchase the insurance for them and their families. I'm sure there are also students of this school district, but more than that, it's just about being a good fiduciary so that every dollar that you could maximize elsewhere that doesn't need to go into the plan can be discovered and placed in the other areas. So I think it's a very good process to go through to make sure that you are spending the appropriate amount in the right places in your health insurance plan, that your teachers feel they have a valuable benefit package. But to maybe allow some dollars that are currently in the health insurance program to go to some of the other initiatives that you guys have on your agenda. Any questions for me?
Well, this is more maybe for us, but who is going, I mean, is this a board thing, or will you have a review committee? Sarah, will you be involved in reviewing these? I want to know how we're going to make the decision to bring it,
Yeah, in the last board that,
finalist.
sure, in the board meeting that I presented out a couple months ago, I believe the direction that was going is there was going to be maybe an ad hoc committee, a smaller group, a
Okay.
subset of the insurance committee and other interested partners that would be assigned to a short-term project to help bring this to back to an action item this summer.
Perfect.
And then turn it back over to your insurance committee to move forward in the renewal process. Fee Insurance Group, which is who I work for, we are not allowed to bid in this. Our project was to help streamline this and bring in people who we know in our industry and that your group wants to hear from.
Okay. But you'll be available during that process and go through these things?
Most definitely. Yep.
Great.
Yeah, and I hope I get to talk to all of them. You know,
Good.
when we send a bid out, we've listed 6 different organizations that do have advertising, I'm going to call it, that they specialize with school districts, so they understand a lot of how school districts operate and some of the challenges they have. So really the challenge is, I would like to see their response to your request look different than any other school district. And so you can't ask the same questions if you want to get different responses from the professionals in the space that I exist in. So the questions are different. I imagine they'll have a hard time answering some of them, which is why one of the notes is I'm not asking for them to answer each question specifically, but paint a better picture of what it feels like to work with your account team. Don't just tell me who they are and what their name is.
Very good.
Sarah, I do want to tell you that sometimes when I read this stuff, it goes like this, and you bring it so it's just over my head, so I appreciate that.
It looks good, right? Well, that's a good look. We'll get it down to maybe resting on your
Yeah,
shoulders.
maybe
and-
one day we'll get there.
Right, I'll do my best.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is an action item, so when we send this out, it is the board's request for proposal, not administration's or not Sarah's per se. So the Board of Education is respectfully to request to approve the request for proposal for health insurance services, changing agency compensation from a commission basis to a fee-based structure. The board is further respectfully requested to authorize the clerk of the board to send out the request for proposals.
Go ahead. I make a motion for approval.
Okay,
I'll second it then.
all right. We have a motion by Tammy and a second by Pamela. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Again, I do want to thank the board for moving that up because I know Sarah's got a ways to travel this evening so she can get home safely. At that point, I would like to take maybe a courtesy. As you're aware, I think we notified you all in the weekend review, we had the misfortune of a boring situation that originated with the decision from Cox Cable to putting a line into Central, and they proceeded to bore through our well field at Central. And it looks like that's going to be about a $35,000 situation. And Mary has been working diligently to make sure that's covered. I don't know what the latest is because it seems like every time I talk, somebody else in your company has a different take on that. But I don't know if you wanted to get a report on that or not at this point, or, come on.
They were boring under.
The long and the short of it is that Cox bored a fiber optic cable, is that correct? Some kind of cable through the underground system that provides your air handling system at Central.
Didn't they call 411?
No, they didn't. They asked your janitor where the stuff was. I don't get it, totally don't get it, but that's neither here nor there. They managed to only hit it once, when, well, you laughed, but when they started looking for it, when they actually had to locate it, because they were trying to figure out where the fluid was running out of the system, we started over here, and then we kind of traced it over there. And in the meantime, we see where they missed it like 3 other times by this much. I don't know how they could have done what they did, but that's neither here nor there. We reported the claim to EMC. Their initial response was they sent us adjuster the very next day. He was great to work with. He called me. He goes, "We're good to go, Mary." I told Bill, "We're good to go." 2 weeks later, he calls me and he goes, I don't think so.
Does Cox have any liability in this?
Cox says.
I got a lawyer sitting in the room here.
We've been talking to him too.
Okay.
Cox is saying, we asked you if there was anything out there, and you told us, So the long and the short of this is
that
EMC
accurate?
told us
Motion, we
yes.
sue Cox.
Is that accurate? They asked, I thought you said they asked the janitor.
They
he
asked
said he didn't know.
custodian, they asked somebody that was at Central, is there anything we need to be careful about out there?
But they're the professionals.
Exactly.
That's their job. I mean,
Exactly.
I don't know
I
why
don't
this
think
would
that they
be
legally
our
could have
insurance.
dug without 411, even though they were underneath your property continuously while this was going on. So we had a yes, then we had a no, then I said, I'm not taking no.
You want to argue with Mary?
So it went all the way to EMC's home office twice for legal consultation on it. It came back to Wichita. They called us this morning and they said, just send us the bills. And I said, thank you, we appreciate that. We like to see our dollars at work. And I said, this really wasn't so much about the claim because you have a $25,000 deductible. So what you're going to get back is going to be minimal. What I wanted was for them to fight Cox, not for the school district and their legal people to fight Cox. I wanted EMC to fight Cox. And so once they make a payment to you, they will immediately put Cox on notice that they've made a payment, that they have a claim, and then the argument will begin. But in the meantime, they're taking care of all of that for you instead of it all happening here with Clayton. Clayton's happy with me. So as of this morning, they told me to send all the bills. They anticipated paying them, yet less your deductible, and then it'll be sent over to subrogation to pursue. I would guess that we're looking at least 6 months. It won't happen quickly.
Did the work get done finally? Did the work get done that needed to be done?
You mean,
Ray, does it work?
At Central, I mean,
Central.
is everything,
No, I haven't checked.
we haven't checked on the Cox cable. By the way, what even makes this worse, when we added the additional space at Central, as part of that construction project, as we do with every building, we make a number of what they refer to as pathways. We had conduit between the building and a number of places in the, next to the street and so forth. There was no reason for them to bore in the first place.
furthermore, we've also given special direction in the past to Cox of who to contact and to never start digging without it. And never should there be someone that's put on the spot like that to just step outside and to say that.
Right.
And I would think they had the same obligation that residents have, and that you have a liability to make that call for underground
Well,
digging.
and to further complicate the situation, the actual boring did not take place by Cox. They subcontracted that out.
Subcontracted that.
So we keep going down the hill here with who's responsible. I would expect EMC to recover. You know how this plays out, though. We won't get 100% of it back, but I would expect to get a substantial part of it back. We'll keep you up to date on what's happening, but like I said, probably about the time school starts, we might know something.
Deductible.
Somebody contacted Cox
Oh,
directly
yes.
from our office, and they don't have, because to me, they would have insurance on it, because we shouldn't have to pay the deductible either. They
Yeah,
should pay
that's-
the full. 'Cause you don't want them to go,
Crazy.
reimburse your insurance, and then we pay the $25,000 deductibles.
They were on site the first day when we knew for sure that that's what happened. I wasn't there, but I understood from the adjuster that the guy from Cox was like, it's not our problem. That's why I have pushed this forward, so that someone else would chase the legal aspect of it. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement. It's interesting, is all I can say. It's been an interesting thing. I want to give kudos to somebody else. In the midst of all this, we have 3 loops at Central Elementary. And I just want to compliment Chris Myers, James Trombley, and our whole maintenance staff, because they got in this, they found out where the problem was. They knocked out the necessary concrete. We hired people to, do this, and we didn't dig down to find it. They actually came in and they flooded the area, and they sucked out the stuff so they wouldn't do more damage to the pipes. And so, it was all done correctly. And so our maintenance team really, it is back working, and I just want to give kudos to them, because they made this thing happen, and I really do appreciate that, so.
But if we had given Cox a protocol before they drilled, if we had given them a protocol and they did not follow the protocol.
Let me explain why. We had, and I don't like, anyway, I'm not trying to throw stones, but we just had, at one point, Cox was contacting building principals, where do you want, where do you want cable service? And of course, principals, well, everywhere. I mean, they didn't think it was out of their, and so what we basically did, Ray Whiff is the district contact person, and anytime you need something from Cox, you go through Ray. And we have consistently notified them that way because, no, we're not putting cable, TVs in every room. That's just not what we do because that's not a district protocol. So they should have called Ray first of all, and that should have been where the thing started. But it was, anyway, it is what it is, and just,
Okay.
I don't want to say a typical day in the school district, but things, as I tell Dr. Dirksen from time to time, it is always interesting in this business, so.
I would be disappointed if we had to pay this, because I can't even imagine why we would ever have to pay that, even our deductible.
We will fight it, and we've been in contact with Clayton. He's been aware of the whole situation from day one too, so.
I think Mary's correct, though. EMC, if they pay above the deductible, they'll want their money back. And so they will be our strongest advocate.
Any other questions? Okay. If we could start in the regular agenda then, we do have on page 228 of your agendas, we do have a bid for the demolition house at 110 West Mulberry Street. And basically that is a $35,000 bid. This is, I think, the third time we've gone out for bids on this property. I think it's still a little expensive, but there's a point where this is what it's going to cost to get it torn down. We need to move forward with that so we can move forward eventually with the parking at Comanche Middle School. So the Board of Education is respectfully requested to approve the bid for Mize Construction of Wichita, Kansas to demolish the house at 110 West Mulberry in the amount of $35,000 to be paid from capital outlay and authorize the board clerk to issue a purchase order.
Hey, Bill, I have a question, if I might.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Compared to the price we paid for that property and the fact that we don't have to demo it right now, I guess my suggestion or experience on the cost of a house demo and what I do, that is a pretty high price. And would it make more sense just to put it in the bid when we finally get to do the parking lot? They're bringing the equipment anyway, and it would probably, I would say, common sense, say come at a lower rate because they're not coming out of their way just to do this house, because that's a significant cost for a house demo.
Good idea.
That's interesting.
The reason we end up with Mace is because they're doing some dirt work on the administration center, and that's because we weren't getting other bidders. I mean, that's the reason we went that way. It depends if the people who finally would get the cement bid also have the kind of equipment necessary on that job to demo the house, and I don't know. I'm off my expertise at that point. If you want us to, we could delay this, and you could, postpone it. I could ask Chris Myers his opinion, and we could get some other opinions and make a recommendation back to the board. Like I said, I think it's high, but we've had this thing out 3 times, and we just have not been successful. And we've advertised it, we've done the whole bit, so.
Is this lower than the other 2 times it
Yes.
was out?
Yes.
What's the timeline for ideally to have that parking?
We would have liked to have already been moving forward on the parking lot, and one of the questions that we've had is after the house is once demoed, what might it motivate them, have people in the next house that they'd also like to sell their house when they realize that house is not going to be there any longer. That happened when we did Central Elementary School. As we tore down houses, suddenly people who weren't interested became more interested in having us purchase a house. So that's why we were trying to get moving forward on this, so.
Well, I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing. You just put the project out for bid. You already have the specs on the paving, on the building, the parking lot?
We have a general draft. We don't have the final specs in the parking lot at Comanche yet. We have some general designs, there's still specifications we'd have to put on. And we could do that. If that's what you want to do, we can sure go forward with that process.
I mean, I think it would be interesting. I mean, all we can do is go back and say, we'll do this, but if somebody would, to do the paving and include demolishing of the house, they'd do it for $30,000, we'd save $5,000. I mean, so.
It's whatever you want to do. Again, we were trying to maybe encourage the neighbor. I mean, that was the other thing. We would really like to have the other lot because it really, when you lay the parking lot out, it becomes a much nicer parking lot if we get that last lot.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just make it part of the project. Just make the demolition part of the project.
Yeah, and what Bill is saying is if we bid for the entire project, they'll be starting on the project without that remaining house gone. So what he was trying to do was to get this approval so we could demolish this house in hopes that the other people would want to sell their house then before we started the project. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I don't also feel comfortable with that. It almost feels like a bully tactic, like they're trying to talk somebody into something, and now, I guess.
Yep,
I don't feel-
totally agree. I mean, we can do whatever the board desires.
Yep.
Sell their house.
Well, I think we were just trying to give them the opportunity, to realize what it's going to be without that house there. I think that was more our thing, wasn't we were trying to necessarily bully anybody, but as central, when people suddenly had an empty lot next to them versus a house, they realized, how that was going to be, and we just got different answers from people. And the people in the second house haven't been opposed to selling it, they just couldn't find something in that same price range that at that point, they were satisfied with. That's kind of where we ended up with it. So it's whatever you all want to do as a board.
Do we have to insure that house? Is it a cost to us just sitting there? Tax?
Technically, until we turn it into school usage, we are paying property taxes on that property. And I don't know, I'd ask Mary, but I know she's aware of it, so I'm assuming at some point there's a cost on the, at least for liability. I don't know that we're charging anything for the house itself, because if it, got demolished, that's not really a concern, but we would have liability.
Spent $90 million and now we're quivering at 35,000. I mean, but
I move to demolish this home, the 35,000.
We have a motion by Pamela. Anybody want a second? Okay. So.
Fails for lack of a second.
It fails for lack of a second. And I think it seems to me that there's interest in looking at Tracy's idea of doing it as a package with the demo and the parking lot all together.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
All right.
Do you need, Dr. Dirksen, do they need to take any action, or do we just go ahead and follow?
No, I think the action was taken and there was no action because of a failure
Okay.
to have a second, so
We'll bring it back the other way.
motion dies.
Yeah.
And so we move on to the next item.
Next item is there's a bid to sand and refinish gym floors at Sewell Elementary and Northwest Elementary.
I think you skipped the exterior signage for the
Oops,
high
I'm
school.
sorry,
high
I didn't
school.
mean to. I got it, what extra thing? If I skip exterior, Ms. Feist is going to be unhappy with me. There is a bid for the Dodge City High
Don't want
School
that.
exterior signage. And basically, this came in a little higher than we anticipated. I think the reason was because the original sign we thought was going to be a monument sign that would need to be lit. With the design on the entry sign, there is some lighting involved, and that did bring the price up. We think we can do that in the overall budget. This is dollars that is from the bond project, and we think we'll still be fine with that. So we'd recommend the approval of this project.
And I think it's worth pointing out, there are more signs than
Oh,
just
yes.
the electric sign. So when you're
Yes.
talking about this bid, and you're talking about one of the signs needing electricity, there are
Rest
many
of-
other
yes.
way signs, identification signs around the campus. And so that's very important to understand in this bid, because it is a lot of money. It is a little higher than we wanted, but it is crucial that we present the campus in a way that people have an understanding of how to transverse around the area. So I really think it will help improve the facility and make it look outstanding, so.
Do we have a picture of what these signs will look like?
We,
On the sheet.
Did you include it in the materials? Because I was looking for it and didn't see it. And I've looked at it before.
Unless it was in our extra,
No, that was for the.
nope,
I didn't have.
Well, I would make a,
Haven't you handed it out before and we?
I
can
thought
review
we'd handed it out to everybody, and by the way, the high school did have input on this, and, yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Pass those around. There's the first one that is involved in it.
it to you, maybe. Let me see if I
Okay,
can find it and send it
that's
to you.
fine, we'll share. I just take one.
And those go all the way around the campus and,
signs are expensive.
They'll be lit.
yes, the main sign, which I think is at the elbow, isn't it? Is that where the main sign is? Is that the turn?
The area where we planted the trees, when you first come into the campus, once you're on campus, that area that hasn't been, doesn't have grass in it yet.
Okay.
So it's right on the north side of the new academic wing, and it'll sit in that area.
Right on the north, okay. I was farther north than
That's
that.
I believe that's where.
Okay.
mine is.
Okay.
I make a motion, we approve the bid for the signs as presented.
I'll go ahead and second it. It's a local company, so we like
Yeah,
that.
we have a motion by Jeff and a second by Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0.
okay, now the next item is to bid the sand and refinish of the gym floors at Sewell Elementary and Northwest Elementary. One of these was included in the capital outlay list, but the other one was also bad, so we're trying to get both of them done at the same time. So we had 3 bids, and we're recommending the lowest bid on this particular thing.
So, Bill, have we seen has capital outlay met and?
No, the capital outlay committee for this year has not met, and I did meet with Jeff on that last Friday, and I was going to give kind of an update on that when we come to the capital outlay time. If you want to take that out of order, we could do that, or this was on last year's capital outlay, so that's why.
Okay.
In fact, the next item is up to capital outlay, so.
Were these on schedule to be redone, the floors, or was Northwest because of the?
Sewell has been needed refinishing for some time, I think. It's never been done.
That's some time.
Yeah.
It was passed by capital outlay 9 years ago to be done and just never got.
All right. And then Northwest was a result of the water damage.
No, this is actually the old gym in that area there. That's one we're redoing at this point.
Okay.
So we're just trying to.
I thought it was a result of the water damage.
It's basically,
The old gym, which took a lot of wear.
So do we, I mean, I'm sorry, but Mr. Preston's comment, do we have a lot of things that were passed on capital outlay that?
we have a list of things that are, there were a number of things that were on the capital outlay list that we kind of deferred because we felt like they might or might not be taken care of with the bond issue. So currently, we basically have in the capital outlay account, which, we're happy to go through all this if you want to at some point. This is the book I prepared for the, discussion with Jeff and Jamie, but I think you had something come up you couldn't come to. And we have a list basically of 2 things on that. We have a list where there have been contracts issued and that money is encumbered. We also have a list on this project where projects have been approved and not completed yet, which we call board-approved items, which we also deduct from our capital outlay funds. So until those get done, that money is basically set aside as board-designated money. So to my knowledge, I was not aware of the 9 years ago on that, but, everything that you all have approved, if it hasn't been accomplished in the bond issue or completed, it is still on the list as a board-approved item that we're still looking forward, going forward and getting taken care of.
And we still have designated money for that.
Yes, yes.
And so what kind of things would prevent those items from getting completed?
Well, I think the last couple of years with the bond project, there was a number of items that we weren't sure if it was going to be part of the bond project or not. A number of things that were on capital outlay list we had been going through because they were taken care of with the bond project. For example, security lighting was, something the board approved, with capital outlay for some different areas. Well, we have a proposal now, it's going to take care of security lighting across the district, so those things will be taken care of in that situation. So, at some point, you clean up a lot of that stuff that way. And I'd be happy, if you'd like to, whether you want to do a work session or you want me to come to a board meeting, go through all this, be happy to do that either way.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, I do too, because the bond project, when was the bond passed?
Yes, bond passed, but you got to remember, we're still
9
doing.
years ago?
Huh? How long?
No.
I'm asking 9 years ago?
No,
because
no,
it
no,
says
no,
that
no.
was-
Bond passed is 4 years ago.
4 years
Oh,
ago.
okay. I meant capital outlay before.
Yeah, so, but we'd be happy to go through this list entirely, everything that's still out there to be done. That's not,
Yeah. Let's look at when we can do like a special work session to
Yeah.
go over that.
So you'll have bond, a list of the bond and the
Yes.
capital outlay. Okay.
right. So that's kind of where we are. Back to the thing on floors, usually we look at that based on need, and we ask our maintenance people to evaluate that. It's kind of like the same on carpeting. We try to do some carpeting every year, but we don't really say, well, it's 5 years old, so we're going to tear it out, or it's 8 years old, because the wear's different, use is different, depending where it is in the school's different. So we really try to identify the areas that need it the worst, and that's really what we bring forward, or we try to bring forward to the board on that every year. We also have a list in this book. I've been working with Schwab Eaton, and we probably have parking lots that, not that we need to replace them all today, some of them needed to be replaced yesterday. It's probably a $10 million item, to replace all the parking lots. Again, we try as a district, or what our philosophy has been, when we replace parking lots, we try not to just do overlays that are going to get us by 2 or 3 years. We've tried to go down, put a good base under it. We even use a geotech fabric under it that should help ensure its longevity, and we've pretty well gone to concrete. We're trying to build things that are going to be here 10, 15, 20, 25 years. Again, as a board, if you direct me, you want 2 inches of overlay, we can do that. But we're trying to build for the future, not just, the quick and something that looks good now, but we're trying to build something that you're going to be proud of long term. If I could, just for another minute, we're going to get into some other issues on HVAC in a minute if you want to talk about that. So.
One more thing before we move on. So I'd like this work session to happen before we go for capital outlay for the next year's.
I agree.
That may not get.
I agree completely.
Okay.
Because you need to look at.
Get an idea of what's not completed or started.
Right.
And where we're going.
And I think, and Jeff, I don't want to put words, but I think what, you and I talked about was there really needs to be some prioritization of the board. We can definitely do some things next year. We can't do everything we'd like to do next year. So as a board, you direct us, and then we'll know where we need to move on it.
It's a big old district with a big old plant, and there's always millions of dollars in needs, so. Yep.
I think Chris said this year he had $7 million worth of requests on capital outlay. So it is huge. But we'll be happy. I think we've done a lot of the research, and so we can try to give that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Needless to say, the gym floors do need finished, obviously, and we do need to go to that bid, and we need that approval, correct? And
That's correct, if you
I
want.
would make a motion that we approve I'm assuming you're the one out of Hayes, Von Lintel?
Yes.
We approve the $22,884.90 bid to refinish the floors at Sewell and Northwest.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jeff and a second by Tammy. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0.
Now, the next issue that was on the board packet was the discussion of capital outlay, and that's kind of where we started. And the dilemma of capital outlay, it all interrelates. It's kind of like, the old thing where you used to have the sticks and you try to get one out without moving. Everything you move affects something else budget-wise. So I think it'd be excellent for a work session. I'm going to suggest that we really focus on sources of revenue for capital outlay so you have a better understanding of that. And then we could also talk about small projects, large projects. We know, for example, we've got about $10 million worth of parking. Doesn't mean we need to do it all today, but we've got a lot of it out there that needs to be addressed. But it also means that we've got some issues with HVAC. So anyway, that's kind of on capital outlay. Contracts with Architect Plus for Memorial Stadium is the next item on your agenda. Basically, and I'm going to give kudos to Clayton Curbs. He's been working on this diligently. So anyway, that was the board chose an architect. And I don't know, Clayton, if you want to make any comments about these or not, but we think it does protect the district, and it's basically it's kind of two agreements that are kind of tied to one, but there is an agreement, first of all, it's going to be a master plan, and I completely concur that we need a master plan first, because we don't want to do phase one and then find out because we did phase one, phase three, well, we need to now, put drainage or pipes or something through what we did as phase one. So when we complete the master plan, then we can choose the phases, and hopefully the architect can give us some direction at that point.
Yeah, the two agreements,
You want to come to the mic? Because if you don't do that, then I'll have somebody complain. Your attorney talked off mic and are trying to hide something from us, so we don't want that. So I'm gonna move this.
Okay, I think in your packet, it's B133 and then B202 are the two agreements. But I'm a chronological thinker, so I think the B202 contract is the programming contract, which is what you'll get a master plan out of. And so that is a planning design phase for the entire area, not just the stadium. And the compensation for Architecture Plus is a not to exceed $17,900. That's on page 265 of the board packet. And then the second contract is, it's the, in the attachment, on the board consideration sheet, it says attachment B133. In the body of it, it calls it B113, but it is B133. And that is for the actual construction phase of the project. And what we arrived at through discussions with Architecture Plus, which really, the discussions went well. And I think we're all on the same page as far as what, how these agreements should look. The compensation is to be determined by the board or by agreement of the board and the architect at the beginning of each phase. And that's on page 256 of the board packet. And it just was done to give the board flexibility as to grouping phases together, whether a lump sum compensation or a percentage compensation is the right fit for that particular part of the construction. So I think we're satisfied with the agreements, and if you have any questions, Bill or I will take them. But I agree that they're fit for approval at this time.
Isn't it true that on the overall project, what did you call that, first phase, the master plan?
The programming, that's
for
the
master plan.
B202
Didn't
contract.
we establish a committee for the master plan? And that committee included Jay Gifford, Jeff Hires,
Matt Turner.
Is that listed in here? Or is that just an understood?
Well, in the 202 contract, it doesn't say
Bill Hammond
that
also
specifically.
was on that committee.
It does just talk about the architect needing the input and goals of the district for the project, and so that would be part of that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of the fact that we did have board representation, we had the athletic department, and we had the other administrators involved, so that we did have a authorized committee that was involved in that process.
You want to share that one paragraph of what we're expecting out of the program phase, if you can find it. But that was. Was it top of that, I think?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Bill.
What I was trying to refer
You might be
to
able to find it.
on that was that one of the questions that I raised with Clayton early on this was, as you look at this master plan, it's pretty aggressive what they're expecting to accomplish in that. They really want to understand us as a district and what our needs, what our goals, what our views are and values, which is kind of interesting. But on the other hand, to get the project you want, the architect really does need to understand those things. So I just thought it was interesting. It was their verbiage, it was not our verbiage. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. So, any questions?
Just need to approve it. Is that a motion for approval?
Yes.
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion by Pamela and a second by Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0.
Clayton, thanks for being, now I'm trying to go through this and not miss anything in the process, folks. Okay. The next item on this is the intent to utilize an alternate project delivery method, construction manager at risk, CMAR Memorial Stadium project. From the earlier board discussions, that was the direction we had from the board. You wanted to do that. So now it's a process. We have to go through the legal means of accomplishing that. And it was the recommendation, I think, of council that we not engage this until we had an architect selected and under contract, because he should be part of this process. So this evening, am I saying everything correctly here? Yes. Basically, the Board of Education respectfully requested to direct administration to publish a notice of intent to utilize an alternative project delivery method, construction manager at risk, and to place on the agenda at the April 8th, 2019 Board of Education meeting an item calling for public comment on the board's intent. The board has further respectfully requested direct administration to prepare an RFQ, which we'll do in conjunction with the architect, for construction manager at-risk services. And the reason we have a legal obligation, as I understand it, to notice this opportunity for the public to come in and have public comment about choosing this delivery method, and that we do have to publish that notice in the paper. And so that's the reason that we're asking this
And
evening.
that's in the board.
And that's all in the board packet, so.
271.
Okay. I make a motion for approval.
Motion by Tammy, second by Pamela. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 6-0.
Okay, thank you so much. The next item is the fleet rotation report. Basically, we bring this to the board each year, and Diane's here if you have any questions about that, and after we do the fleet rotation report, then we're going to make a recommendation for specifications for those vehicles. So, Diane?
It seems like I ask this question every year, but there's two trucks in maintenance. They're both 2008s, and they have 30 to 35,000 miles on them. And I struggle with why we're replacing vehicles with such low mileage on them.
That's for next year, but I have recommended and spoke to Mr. Hammond and to Chris Meyer about, I believe that we need to maybe wait longer to rotate those due to the mileage and the usage. Usually we do 10 years for district vehicles, like for the Suburbans, for my activity vehicles. I do use, I get the mileage put on those vehicles. So I have spoke with both of them, and we are talking about that. So we have talked about that, because I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
So that's not for this year?
No, that's not for this year.
Yeah. I like with the Suburbans that are up this year, I guess, those only have, or no, I'm on the wrong page there, never mind. But yeah, I just, on maintenance, I don't really understand the need to replace those vehicles.
No, I agree with you.
Okay.
The one thing I do want to say about that is we look at this rotation, and I recognize your point, and I think there's some validity to it. However, there was a event that occurred this winter, and I was able to get a hold of the head of maintenance, and all of our property was cleared and maintained. And you can't do that unless you have a fleet, and in our district, as big as it is, we have to have a fleet. So there, I think it's being made well aware that we're looking at making sure that we're maximizing our resources to the best of their ability. But I also think that there's a balance, because I came from an experience where you get out of that rotation, and that becomes very dangerous once you get out of that rotation, because it's hard to make it up. Mm-hmm. So I want us to be respectful, and I certainly appreciate the point that is made, but I also have appreciation for the fact that we have an effective and efficient fleet that does get the job done.
Just finding that balance.
Yes, just finding that right balance, I agree.
And I do just want to comment on the specialty vehicles, when you, the tally that you see in the back of the vehicle rotation. For example, like for next year, I will compare to see what some of the vehicles, if they don't have very many mileage, and depending how the wear and tear on those vehicles, I will, I will rotate those, so I don't just, I focus mainly on that first year, and then when I start working down my years, that's when I start moving different vehicles to see what is in need. For example, building trades needed a 4-door pickup, and so I recommended to move a vehicle for their needs.
Right.
I try to do that.
Very good.
Okay. I am informed.
Care if my car is hard, but this would be a difficult.
different.
I'm impressed with what you do.
Oh, well,
Very
thank
much.
you.
I can't keep up with two.
Thank you.
This is an informational item, but if there are no questions, then we'll go to the next one, which is basically, after you look at the needs, then we basically develop specifications. Because I always like to make the point, when we're bidding vehicles or whatever, it's not administration specifications or bid, it's really the board's bid in your specifications. So this gives you an opportunity. If you have any questions, you can surely ask Diane and we do it. But anyway, these are the specifications that we have for each vehicle. And they're also in here, and that's what we bid out. We actually do bid those things out. And that is an action item, so,
The buses?
Page 278.
yeah.
I had two questions on the buses. Do all our buses have seat belts for the students?
Only our special ed and our Bright Beginnings buses have seatbelts.
Do they not provide those, or?
We are not required yet by the state of Kansas to have those on the bus. I have not bid them with seatbelts. It would also minimize our capacity with seatbelts, and we do transport to capacity.
One thing that I attended at one of the KASB conferences, one thing that they mentioned is that if you have all the students in a seatbelt, then if there were an accident and they can't get out of their own seatbelt, then that can become a problem too, because they can't get out because they can't undo the belt by themselves. So
There's a lot of pros and cons.
And my next question is, are the buses air-conditioned, or are they just heated?
I do have our special ed and our Bright Beginnings are air-conditioned, and the rest of all the buses are heated. Also, our activity buses are air-conditioned as well.
Is it a large expense to not?
Very large expense. I have a hard time at times keeping our coach buses with AC functioning well. And there's a lot of, the businesses that we do have in town won't service. And I have to take them either to Wichita. I've had to take one to Kansas City. And so it's difficult to maintain those.
Administration 613 to work with our district, basically to locate the home office here in our district, which would require about another 2,500 square feet of our new administration building. We do have that space available. It was some of the extra space we gained when we put both the computer area and printing on the main level of the new administration building. We had a little bit of unfinished space upstairs. So this evening, basically, I want to get this in front of the board before we came back with a final contract. But based on their action, we feel it would be in the best interest of our students to have all functions here in this building, because we are about 68% of the current co-op. And we think that will include, be better communication as opposed to you need to come to Ensign or we need to come up here trying to work it over, texting or whatever. You can walk down the hall, maybe come up to a lot of situations. We also think it will be advantageous if they're bringing teachers in to interview into a new facility in Dodge City versus kind of the facility they have it inside. And again, I don't want to downgrade that, but it could use a little help.
Well, the 613 board, they took a long time to make this decision, and finally they're going to have to do something. That building's falling in around them, and we've made them a very plausible option. This is a great option for the board, and that's not me, by the way. I don't. But the recruiting aspect of the 613 to bring them here. When Ramona came, she said, "Why do you guys interview teachers in this building?" And so we took the interviewing to the Learning Center into the buildings, and it makes a difference. And we think that that it will make a huge difference to the co-op.
And I wasn't there for the final motion, but wasn't there concern and discussion about a long-term lease that they want it to be for length of time so that they don't get into a problem?
We had originally presented the 613 board with a 10-year lease. As a 613 board member, I'm not comfortable with that. And so we need to have some security that, because 10 years goes by pretty quick.
It's not very long.
And we get a board in that doesn't like special ed or something, and all of a sudden they're in trouble. So we need to work out, and Clayton is working with Bill, and then we'll get the two administrations together and hammer out something that would be plausible for both boards.
I just wanted to make sure that was understood by everyone, because it is very important.
As a 613 board member, I would like a little more security than 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, Jeff, could I add to that? I've looked at that a little bit just since we met on Friday. And it looks like it's either 10 or 20 by statute. And so it just depends how we define what we're doing. Is it an improvement or is it real property? If it's an improvement, then it can only be 10 years. And that's set by statute. If it's considered an improvement, then it can be 20.
Can you do a rolling 10? Is there anything in the statute that'll let you do that?
No, it just says 10 years.
It says 10 years, period.
Could you renegotiate and extend it? Yes.
And what does it have to be for 20?
Considered,
Real property.
yeah, I don't have my notes with me. An improvement, land, or equipment, I think is what it says.
Oh.
So I think that's figuring out what do those definitions mean? And can we call this an improvement? So it's a 20-year lease.
When in Kansas, when in doubt, call Dale Dennis.
It's an improvement for our administrative office, what we're getting, so we could.
I think it's a real positive move to have them here.
I do too.
I think that's a great idea.
Because we're going to, we're 68% now. It'd probably be 72 or 73 in a few years, and so
definitely for it.
In the small schools, I was, they were a little reluctant at first, but they really got on board, and I was really pleased with the attitude.
So you need approval to.
We're just asking the board to direct us to enter into negotiations with 613 is the bottom line. You're not approving any contract. If you have any thoughts, obviously we'd like to have that as we go forward in negotiation. And we have talked about a rolling contract, which there are some other entities that have done that. So, maybe you have the first 5 years, but after 5 years, then every year you roll out another year. There's ways you could work that out, and that's kind of what we're thinking about. So,
I'll move for this approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Pamela and a second by Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 6-0.
the next item is really more of a housekeeping situation. There was, as you're aware, we use AB Creative through Greenbush situation on our playgrounds. There was some work that we were going to do in-house, and we had people who were busy enough and just didn't have time to do it. So we basically, in order to get the playground done on a timely basis, they did some additional work, and this is just basically to ratify that, because when our auditors audit this whole project, they go back to all the board approvals, and we got to make sure all the balances come out right. So that's basically what this is. and it's $1,865. I'm really sorry to spend your time doing that, but that's kind of where we are with it.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Jamie, second by Jeff, all in favor.
Okay. The last item.
6-0.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't.
I really like the work we've done on the playgrounds.
Mhm.
I mean, they are phenomenal, and it's just cool.
This kind of works into the next item. We basically entered into an agreement with Greenbush, which is one of the co-ops across the state of Kansas, and they've kind of become the purchasing co-op, if you will. And one of the reasons we did this on playgrounds, you try to write specs for playgrounds, and getting specs that are specific enough so you don't get stuff that's going to fall apart in a year or two, it's hard. So basically, by going with Greenbush, it's an approved procurement process, but we know we're going to get good quality things. We also, with working with Greenbush, they have a consultant that with AB Creative that comes up, because those, when you do a playground today, you also have to consider American Disabilities Act, et cetera, and they take all that into account when we're doing playgrounds. So it's really, I think, been a good agreement for us, and I think it's worked well. It kind of ties into the next one, because the next one is basically, we do have some HVAC issues in our district. Quite candidly, Comanche Middle School hit us first. We were really thinking that we would start off with Miller Elementary would be the next one we'd start to have major failures in. But we do have 2 units on the top of Comanche that we need to get fixed as soon as possible, or otherwise we're going to have classrooms without air conditioning in them. And it's just that simple. We have compared the cost of replacing, upgrading the equipment, fixing it, and I'm kind of looking at Jamie here. It's kind of like there's a point on a car. You basically, it's time to do something different. And that's kind of where we are with these 2 pieces of equipment. The bad news is we're expecting that to be about $250,000 for those 2 pieces of equipment. We can go through our normal bid process on this. We do have engineers working and getting the specs together, but the recommendation of administration in order to what we think would move our time down by about 4 weeks, there is an agreement with Greenbush Procurement and Contract Services where they have a national agreement with Train. And basically, if you go through this agreement, what they do is they have a standard discount on their equipment that's just part of the contract. So you're not paying retail price per se. You're going to get a discount up front. Then what they do is they do bid out the installation services. And Train has basically told us that under that condition, they will make sure that local contractors have the opportunity to bid the installation. And so it's basically a time frame situation, which is why we'd recommend this. If you choose not to do this, then what we'll do is we'll bid it out, but it's going to be longer getting those units repaired, taken care of, or fixed, replaced. So.
How old are the units?
18 years, and when you talk about rooftops, 18 to 20 years is life, so they're into their life expectancy. The bad news is we have a bunch more at Comanche, so this may be the first of many. The other school I mentioned earlier, Miller Elementary, still has a section where there are rooftop units on it. And the problem with Miller Elementary is not only are there rooftops, but they did all the electrical wiring on top of the roof. And some of that is, it really, I don't know how you can get a good roof on there with all the electrical wiring. It's more like a spaghetti. And I'll just describe that. So when we hit Miller, we're probably looking at a different system, maybe a VRF system. We think we can be very adaptable there. We've had conversations with our engineers, and that way we could also get rid of a ton of wiring and so forth on the roof. As we did the roofing projects and remodeling projects, we have significantly reduced the amount of electrical conduit on the top of Dodge City Middle School and also Sunnyside Elementary, which has allowed us to, we think, do a lot better job when it comes time to replace the roof. So again, when we talk about capital outlay, those are the kind of things we're going to talk to you about. But we do need to move forward. And again, if this procurement process is okay, that's what we're asking you to approve tonight. If you don't want us to do that, we'll go with the traditional bid. Our sense is it's going to take about 4 weeks longer to get those taken care of. So.
I think probably, since Greenbush we've done business through them before to buy the equipment, and then we'll bid out the installation. That's what I'm understanding you saying.
Yeah, Train, the contracts with Train company directly.
Right.
And then they'll handle the bidding. They will do the bidding of the installation. So when it's a turnkey operation, the equipment, the installations, everything, there's But when they did the installation, we do have a guarantee that they will open that to local vendors here, which only makes sense because that should be a very competitive bid. So,
I'd make a motion, we approve the procurement process through Greenbush.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion by Jeff and a second by Tammy. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0.
thank you all so much, and thank you for your patience this evening.
All right.
Thank
thanks,
you, Bill.
All right, Dr. Dirksen, do you want to?
Okay, I'd like to inform everyone that I had listed an agenda item that in conferring with our attorney, he has recommended that we exercise the attorney-client privilege and hold this conversation in what will be our first executive session when we get to that segment. And that will include Bill Hammond, Fred Dirksen, and Clayton Curbs, along with the board, to have that discussion.
Thank you. All right, we're ready for Board of Education member district responsibilities. Park and Rec Advisory Board, Jamie, have you had a meeting recently?
Nope.
Okay.
Have one last month, so.
Okay. Bright Beginnings and Head Start, Ryan's not here. Is there anything that we need to be aware of besides what we've already?
We did receive some really good news last week.
Microphone.
Can I go up to the mic?
Microphone.
Mike, can you go to the mic, please, sir? Thank you.
So we received really good news last week via email that we are eligible for non-competitive grant status for the next 5-year grant. So that means that we aren't competing against other possible competition,
That
and
is good
that's
news.
good news for us.
Yeah, very good.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. All right, special education, anything besides what we've already talked about tonight?
Yeah, there was two major issues that were talked about, and the first was the building, but the second one was we've had information on our salary structure for our specialists. These are our speech paths, psychologists, even our physical therapists, which we only have 1 and 2 techs for the whole co-op. And Dr. Dirksen and I have discussed this, and we've discussed it with the president of the board, Brian Lady, and with John, that we have to do something. If we are going to stay staffed in those specialties, we are going to have to work with our salary schedule. This is to me, it's non-optional. And there were some ideas floated for next year that I thought were in the right direction, but the ultimate goal is to create, as other co-ops and other school districts who hire those positions, to create a separate salary schedule. Because right now, basically, a speech path is treated as a teacher with a master's degree plus $1,000. And their certifications are ongoing, and that just has to change, especially if we're going to be able to recruit the quality and the quantity of people that we need. We have part-time speech paths with full-time loads. Dodge City is the one that is hurt the most because of our student population. And so this is something that is, I told you I went in spoiling for a fight last time, and we didn't have to because there was already some ideas floated. We have some pushback from the smaller districts, but I think we're moving in the right direction. And they got negotiations coming up too, and so that's going to be very interesting. So I think we're moving in a good direction right now, but there's still a lot of work to be done to meet the needs of not only our students, but the other communities. And the load in special ed is not getting smaller. It is growing. And so 613 has almost been neglected as far as board participation. It's almost been run entirely by the administrators, and that has changed in the last years. I've brought my reports to you. And so I'm encouraged by the direction we're moving, and I hope you and your buildings can, especially in the next 12 months, see a difference. And I would welcome any comments you have. I want to know the problems, and I want to, if something goes right, I'd like to know that too. But I really want the administrators' feedback. The building, you're there on the front lines, so please give me your feedback, because this is very important, obviously, but it's become very important to me in the last 2 years. So, that's it.
Thank you. Legislative, obviously, there's a lot going on that. Do you?
Well, I'm going to yield to the new, Dr. Dirksen was appointed as one of the co-chairs for the Governor's Council. Am I correct? We have a great picture of you, and so I will.
Very nice.
I will.
Actually,
I will-
hopefully refrains from being legislative in nature, though, but it is connected.
yeah.
And I did work quite a bit this weekend with our Representative Brad Ralph, who's in the midst of a lot going on. I don't know all of the things that were passed last week, but the Medicare that worked favorable for some opinions, apparently with the right conservative group, it wasn't to their favor, and they're retaliating this week with some different structures that would have a negative impact on the school finance. We need to pay attention to closely. I was alerted on Sunday of 2 bills that were going to be brought forth today, and I encouraged Brad Ralph to not support them, to stick with the original Bill 142, and he seemed supportive of what I requested and gave me an assurance that he had an understanding of what was going on. So there's a lot of positioning. I know he's also been texting Lisa and I to try to keep us informed on what's going on, and there's just a lot of action that is taking place right now in the legislature, and it affects schools as well as the state of Kansas. So we just need to keep an eye out, and I'll keep you informed when something major needs to be shared.
Very good. Okay, capital outlay. I don't think we have anything, Tracy
Haven't
and
heard
Tammy.
anything. Is that,
Let's talk about that work session a little bit, because that's something that's been requested now. And how do you envision that? Is that an afternoon event? Is that an evening? What are we thinking? We want it for all the board.
Yeah, if we could do, as far as I'm concerned, if we could do something like at 5 or 5:30, that would
Okay.
work best for me.
yeah.
Possibly on a Wednesday night, or of course we're in the, Bill, you have any recommendations?
The only thing,
Not Wednesday.
Jeff came in and asked for more of the highlights of capital outlay. I think we spent over an hour on just the highlights of capital outlay. As a board, how deep in the bushes do you want to get? Because I'm more than willing to spend whatever time. I'm just saying, if you really want to get into funding and look over several years, that takes time. If you want to.
Are you able to share a historical presentation of what's been approved and what's been accomplished and what's yet to be
We can begin
accomplished?
to do that, and we have been working in our office, like I said, with the bond issue. It's made it kind of especially complicated because we'd approved security lighting in a number of buildings. Well, we're doing that district-wide, so those we're taking off the capital outlay list because we've done them, and we've been doing that kind of updating. But we have multiple reports on that. We also, I think you probably want to become aware of where we are on roofs. I think you probably want to review where we are in parking lots. The issue of still outstanding parking lots. You've got Memorial Stadium to deal with. And one of the priorities is, we also then have, if you look at TEC, that's a priority of the board. We've had several recommendations on that. Do you want us to go forward? What do you want us to do on that? Then we also have, Dr. Dirksen came in one day and he had talked to our principal at Bright Beginnings, and the feds are pushing us to all-day programs. Well, if you've got 2 half-day programs in one room, if you're going to do all day, guess what? You need another room. So, as a board, you just need to make some decisions. What are your priorities? What phases of Memorial Stadium? How does that all work together? And then as administrators, we need to figure out how to make that happen.
I hate to interrupt, but could you bring, I'm assuming that each principal gives you a list of capital outlay projects yearly. And maybe we could see what they listed for this year and what they're wanting done so that we
We can
can
do that.
see where that falls on the list and
Absolutely, we can do that.
I want to tell you, this is an exhausting process. It is, because there's so many different things out there. Plan on some time.
My concern, though, is I don't want all that coming to a meeting, okay? Really, what I was asking is, if there's because I've been on capital outlay more than I've not. And so what I know is, they all bring them there, the committee talks about them, we say, yeah, this is what we're taking to the board, it gets approved. I always say, now, Bill, we have the money for that, and you say, yes, we do. So what I'm trying to understand is, when we say that, how can it go years and these projects not be done or started? So I want to know what has not been done,
Right.
okay? What's not even been started.
Right.
Then the other thing I want to know is the same thing with the bond projects, okay? So what's not completed at all the schools with the bond projects? Is there warranty works out there that we need, things that are under warranty that hasn't been completed that need to be done? Those kind of things, where we're really at on what we've said we were going to do.
Historical data, which I think would go back to that.
Greg, was your gym floor, was it on the list, or was it voted on and approved?
I was just sitting there trying to think, probably 15 years ago, we put it on there because we were a lot of usage.
Right.
And there's things that popped up. We've had storm damages, we've had all, and it's got bumped. And so it just keeps getting bumped.
So 9 years ago, was it approved?
It's been approved. We had some termite damage, we've had some water damage, but it's underneath the bleachers, so it's not, it's just keeps getting bumped. I mean, I'm glad they got passed, thank you, because it needs to be done.
I think maybe, Bill, you would be better to tell us how long it's going to take to present to us that information.
Is there any way you could maybe give it to us a couple days before that we could look at it and then have questions for you ready that night? And I would like a financial statement as far as, what is actually in that account, what's spoken for, and, a schedule of.
Right. Well, I think we've got everything pretty well in this book that you want. We can go back. In fact, maybe you and I could sit down and go through this. If there's things that you don't have in here, we'll go back and research it so we'd have it before.
Okay.
And I'm going to be candid, based on what we did with, when Jeff and I sat down, I think we spent over an hour. And again, we were at this level, not down to a lot of the financial issues and a lot of the other detail behind all this. You could spend any place between an hour and 3 hours, easy. And I don't mean that to turn anybody off. I'm just saying, we have the information. We're more than happy to share it. It just.
So
it does
let's
take time
shoot
to go
for
through it.
2 hours on April 3rd, 5 p.m.
What day of the week is it?
What does April 3rd look like for anyone? That's a Wednesday?
I'm not in town that week.
Can we do another night besides Wednesday?
Yeah,
Okay.
just trying to be helpful. Let's look at April 4th. I'm just trying to get it done before the next board meeting.
Are you still out of town, Jamie?
I'm all out of town that whole week.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jamie, I
No,
heard you
that's
say that
okay.
and I ignored it. But then that puts us to the next board meeting, April 8th.
But, like I said, if you would get me it a couple days before, like if I could get some of that information sent to me before, then I could submit it to you. Is that for questions, or I could call in too?
Depends what is going on weather-wise. I should be able to be back by then.
One other option, and again, I'm just trying, if there's people who are not going to be here that night who would like to meet earlier, I'm available. I mean, that's, more than happy to spend whatever time, because again, we don't have anything, in my opinion, that we are trying to hide or underdo.
No.
And I think the other thing, you look at it, what we've accomplished over the last 5-10 years, it's really been pretty phenomenal. So are there things that we still need to do? Absolutely. Are there things that probably went through the cracks? Absolutely.
I appreciate your offer to meet with them individually, but I feel like it is more beneficial for the board as a whole to meet.
I was just thinking, there's somebody who can't come to that meeting, then that would be another, I'm just trying to make as many
Sure.
options
Sure.
as I can. But no, I think if you get together, you'll come out with a better understanding. I agree with that.
So, Jamie, do you think you might be able to join by phone, or at least
Yeah, I mean, I think
something on the 4th? And Tracy, you think you might be back by the 4th, depending?
Yeah, I may be. Honestly, personally, it might be easier if we could get some stuff ahead of time on paper so we could digest it and form some of our questions, because it's a lot to digest.
Right.
In presentation
Right.
ahead of time, if that's possible. I know that's a lot to ask.
Would it be possible to get that out maybe by the end of this week or by Monday?
Right, and then again, if, like I say, Tammy, if you look at this and there's something else you want, let us know, we'll put a report together.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I think we have so many things and we're such a big thing. I think we just need to kind of have where are we at with capital outlay in the past and where are we at going forward?
So we want
So
to
we can get a
do
bigger picture going.
5
forward.
o'clock on April 4th?
Yeah, on the
That'll work.
4th, 7 o'clock, and we will have to, even though it's a work session, we'll have to declare it as an official meeting because there will be a quorum there, so we'll have to get out the.
Do you want to at least do something for the board to eat? I would be in favor of that, because I know my wife tells me I get grouchy if she doesn't feed me. That's probably not true of anybody else, but.
At 7 or 5?
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
5 to 7, yes.
Mhm.
And some food will be provided.
Okay.
Give you that option. I think that's a good idea.
We don't want grouchy.
All right, so we'll plan on that.
Okay.
Good. Thank you for clarifying that and getting that set up.
Okay, Pamela, is there any new on the calendar committee?
No, it was sent out. Carrie was that this week you sent it out or last week?
The calendar?
Oh.
Not me.
Okay, all right.
Okay, there's Kansas Heritage Center. I think it's kind of a done deal. I mean, they're already over there. And
Well, there's a lot of progress, and they've made substantial gain in getting things moved across. Speaking of substantial, there's a substantial amount still remaining to be determined where its location will be. And Bill and I took a tour of a lot of extra stuff that is there. And we brainstormed some ideas, and I'm thinking we'll be bringing it to you. We're going to have the town's largest giveaway one day, and then we're going to have truckloads going to the landfill, because it's kind of like in parenting, you tell the kids once that if you want it, you better take it, and then if you don't get rid of it, it'll just stay there forever. So
I agree.
we're telling the kids, if you want it, to take it, and then we're going to get rid of it.
Okay.
Which historical society are we going to get sued by?
Well, my understanding is they've worked pretty closely with the county and the state, and a lot of things have been discussed, but that's a good point.
The County Historical Society has indicated they were going to pick up items, and they were supposed to be here either a week or 2 weeks ago. The items are still here. So, you know.
Yep. So.
That was, today, just kind of update, they basically took stuff to the State Historical Society. It was a lot of the retail items that the Kansas Heritage Center had produced. They also stopped at Spearville Printing, because that's where we had a lot of things printed. So they had a U-Haul that they were actually taking to the Kansas State Historical Society. I think they were kind of surprised at how much stuff we had that went that direction. But it's now on its way, or it will be tomorrow. We're actually driving tomorrow to
I also don't want to diminish the fact that the library has made some fantastic improvements, and they've added some great areas, and they have a very fine area for the Kansas Heritage Center. So I think the efforts there have materialized just as they said they would. So I want to give credit for that. I'm only complaining about what the leftovers are and the fact that there's going to be some work yet to be done on that. So
Very good.
And I'm assuming Chris is going to be at the work session.
Yes, and I apologize. He was planning to be here this evening, but they did have a family medical emergency.
Okay.
Show up, and.
But he will be, okay.
He's planning to be at the, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Jamie, we've got you down to review district bills prior to the next board meeting. Announcements, April 8th is the next Board of Education meeting here in the Austin Boardroom at 6 o'clock. We will have April 4th at 5 o'clock here, a board work session. April 19th to the 22nd is Easter break. April 29th, it's the 5th Monday, not the 4th Monday. Board of Education luncheon meeting at Bright Beginnings. at noon. And then April 26th, USD 443 retirement banquet at Guyman Petro. And we received invitations. They need that number back. Is it April 3rd, Karen? Yes. So I already turned mine in, so you can do that before you leave, and you don't have to worry about getting it back to Karen. So let's see. Do we have items for future board meetings or additional information?
None that I can think of.
Okay, so we have several executive sessions. The first one is for consultation with our attorney on a matter protected by the attorney-client privilege. We need 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
I believe we need 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
What we need for that one? Clayton,
Clayton,
Bill
Krebs,
Hammond, and
Bill
Fred
Hammond
Dirksen.
and Fred Dirksen,
Board of Education.
plus the board. The next executive session will be for personnel, or no, for negotiations.
Correct.
And we need,
Ramona, Scott, Bill, and Fred.
okay, and we need how long?
You guys have
Yeah.
another 10 minutes? Okay. Yep. Let's make it 10 and 10.
Okay. And then for the personnel matters of non-elected personnel, that will be only the board for 15 minutes. We'll try that. And then the next one would be the board plus Dr. Dirksen, and we'll go with 20 minutes for that. Sorry, guys. That's just the way it is.
We're serving breakfast.
Come on now. There you
Thank
go.
you.
Thank you, everyone. All right, we do need a motion for the first executive session.
I make a motion.
Tammy makes a motion,
10 minutes.
Second.
second by Jeff, all in favor?